Hello and welcome to the program. The program you're about to see will challenge your Christianity. And if you thirst for the things of the kingdom, it will spur you onto higher heights in God. And it is about a ministry which is actually the largest in Europe, known as God's Embassy. And the senior pastor of the church is here with me to talk about what this organization is all about. Why is there so much happening within the organization, what kind of impact it's having, and also how can you gain or learn from what they have done for you to take your own territory to the glory of God. You know what? Sit back and watch. And remember, you can always get copies of this material because we're going to be talking in depth about Embassy of God here in Kiev, in the Ukraine. God bless you as you continue to watch. Welcome to the program, Pastor Sunday.
Thank you so much, Pastor Yemi, and it's a privilege to have you in the Ukraine. You came all the way to the Ukraine to have this session with me, and I appreciate it deeply. Thank you so much.
Unbelievable. And you know, because of my travels and the nature of what I do, I see that the same way God would identify somebody to use, the same way the enemy too can just identify somebody to just use and just do certain things to make sure it connects. But thank God for the word of God. He says the steps of the righteous are ordered by God. But then after you got born again, you had opportunities to either go to America or to go to Russia. What happened?
Yes. So that is what happened. I was looking for scholarship everywhere. At this time, one of my brothers, the one that was 16 when this happened, and that was in high school, had now moved, had graduated, so he couldn't, he had to do his school certs and secondary school, WAEC, what they call it.
That is school certificate exam.
Yes, he had to do his school certificate examination.
And the West African Examination Council's exam.
Yeah, he had to do all that from home. No teachers, nothing. So he struggled. He was the senior after people like me. So he struggled and had to do his A-levels and O-levels at home. And eventually he got a scholarship himself to Russia. So at this time he was in Russia. But also because through this newspaper, they used to have something they call Bureau for Foreign Students or something in Nigeria. So through this Bureau for Foreign Students, the federal government was giving scholarships out. So in this year we had 300,000 people, young people applying for scholarship, and they only needed to take 300. So, but I had an offer to go to Columbia University in New York. That was one of the top universities in America. And then, through my brother, I was able to get another scholarship to Russia. So they gave me a choice in this board. Either I go to Russia or USA or England. So when I went to my pastor, I was just a new believer at this time, maybe 3 months or 4 months. So I said, these are the opportunities I have. So he said we should pray about it, and the following week I should come. So I came to him the following week, and he said, it was a deeper life pastor. So he said, well, you could go to England or America, but if you really want to serve the Lord and you treasure Jesus above everything, I would advise you to go to Russia, because even though there is no faith there and Christians are not there, and the few Christians that are there, sometimes they send them to Siberia or put them in prison, but if you can survive it, you survive it everywhere.
Wow.
But if you go to America, there are no temptations, no persecutions. There are no persecution for your faith. But there are other temptations in the sense that it's materialistic society. Yeah. So you could be tempted to be distracted and things like that. So I would advise you to go to Russia, because if you survive it in Russia, you amount to something for God.
Wow.
So I was 19 and I was willing to take the challenge. I told God, I'm going. I have to give my life for you. That was my initial decision, my initial determination, that I will go ready to give my life for the Lord, if need be, in Russia. and if need be, to go to be ready to be sent to Siberia.
And then you headed straight to Russia.
Yes.
And when you arrived in Russia, what happened?
When I was only 6 months old this time.
As a Christian?
As a Christian. But before I could leave Nigeria, I had another problem. Okay, first of all, before I did my WAEC, my school certificate exam, I needed to pay 50 naira. 50 naira was a big money for me. I needed another 3 months to make that kind of, or 6 months to make $50. So, but this was a school term. It was only after the exams you have holidays. So I couldn't make that money before to be able to pay for my school certificate examinations, to my graduation exams. And without paying that money, you are not allowed to sit for the exams. So I was almost being kicked out of the examination, my final exams. So, some people, my relatives and my sister, everybody started running about. Up till now, it's just last year that I got to know where the money came from. I didn't know where the money came from. Somebody just said, it has been paid, go and write your exams. So a lot of pressure. If I won't have, so that was another miracle for me to even write my graduation exam. Then after that, I had my summer holidays, so I made some money, then I paid for JAMB myself. So before I left Nigeria, my result came for the JAMB is what the matriculation exams that you give to enter universities in Nigeria. So I had been admitted to a leading university in Nigeria called University of Ife. So I had the third best result in the admission process. So, but I couldn't go. So I knew I had to travel to Russia. But before I could go to Russia, I needed to pay for the ticket. The scholarship did not include ticket.
Wow.
That was where the crisis started. So I was supposed to leave the country in August because the scholarship was there, and I was supposed to leave in August because the school session, the term starts in September. I didn't get to Russia till the end of September when we had lost and missed almost a month. The classes were on. I almost lost the scholarship. And you know the reason why? I couldn't find 700 naira from anybody, all our relatives. We tried to sell everything we had. I couldn't get 700 naira to buy a ticket.
Wow, that is serious.
So we didn't find that money eventually. We didn't find it.
So how did you
So
get the ticket?
eventually, we had to apply. I had to write an explanatory letter to the scholarship board. And the scholarship board had to send my letter, address my letter to the Russian government. And the Russian government had to add a committee to consider what to do with this. This guy had a good result. There are other people that have already arrived, but there are other people that could take my place, but they would have, so they either compromise. They could take a worse result.
Who had the money for the ticket?
Forfeit me, yeah. Who had the money for the ticket and forfeit the brilliant one. So the question was very hard. So for 2 weeks, they were deciding. The government says, we don't give scholarship with ticket. They have to pay their way. We pay their way back. They pay their way here. So what happened was, they took the decision, and one of the people in the committee was the representative of the Communist Party of Russia. So they said, if he's so brilliant, let's just recruit him to the Communist Party, by the Communist Party. So the Communist Party will pay for his ticket, with the intention that if he's so brilliant, it will be an instrument. It will
A
be
top communist when he gets back.
Yes.
To change the whole
To
country.
be able to, yes.
God is
But before I left the country, I got saved.
unbelievable. God is a dangerous God.
Yeah.
You see, they had a different agenda, but God was doing his own thing differently.
Yes.
So thank God for your life. Okay, but before we start talking about your experiences in Russia. So looking back now to your background, how you grew up, the ups and downs and everything, In what way do you think your background really influenced your Christian walk today?
For example, I would say the way it influenced my life altogether. First of all, my background of hard labor and hard work uh, helps me up to now, because I've learned to be hardworking because of that. And I didn't like it when I was going through it. When my grandmother was making me to go through all the, forest and bush and firewood and all that, I was cursing myself. I was cursing the day I was born, cursing her, cursing everything around me. But when I got to Russia, I discovered that I needed to study extra, because I came late. And then my professor said, you would never master this language because you came late, then you have a funny accent. And there's no way you can ever speak this language, that you are not going to make it. So that was when I said, I will study, I will work hard. So from that day, I took a decision that I will read like never before. I said, what will it cost me to go to the library? I never saw a library in my life, because I went to a community local school, nothing like library. But I saw library. They had, rugs on the floor. They had, everything cool, warm, aircon in the summer. And I said, hey, my God, if I was in the sun that I endured in my village just to eat, and the struggle and the pain and the suffering that I needed to go through just to eat and go to school. Now you are giving me apartment, you are giving me a room, you are giving me, I'm not even working, you're giving me all this luxury just to read. I said I will use the same energy that I used to gather firewood. I will use that energy to devour these books.
Wow, really, thank God for, yeah, well, that's, that's talking mostly about also the spiritual side of things, time management and all those other bits. What about in the area, when we say the area of, say, maybe pride or materialism and all those things?
That is a big one. Well, like we used to have everything before I was 6. Our family, we had everything. So when this tragedy happened in our family and we lost everything, and all the prominent people died in 6 months, and then from having everything to having nothing, to almost being homeless and just going to the bush just to eat. My brother that was in school, he was in boarding school, he was the top student there, respected by everybody, and he had to be sent back home. So when he came home, he was always crying every day. And when he cried, he would say, what will it profit a man to gain the whole world and then lose his soul? So everybody was saying, why do you always say this? What will it profit a man to gain the whole world and then lose his soul? What will it profit a man to gain the whole world and then lose his soul? So they said, why were you saying this all the time? So then he told us a story that he was a star of the school, having everything he needed. That now, when all his resources had gone and all his brothers that he relied on that died, some kids in his class were mocking him and making a joke at him and started quoting. We were not Christians, but these guys knew that scripture. So they were quoting it to him that, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and then lose his soul? So that you had everything and then you have lost everything. What does it profit you? But it had a deeper meaning. We didn't know that, but we are only thinking about our particular situation at that particular time, that we had everything and then we lost everything. So that totally killed in me the desire and the hunger for material things, because we already had it. So what does it profit you to first of all have it? It's better not to even have it than to have it and then go and lose it. And I know what that means, because we used to have it. I never knew what was bush or firewood, or would get injuries in your body because you needed to forget firewood. But now we had it, then we lost everything. And what does it profit? It's good to even not taste it than to have it and then lose it. So that also left a mark, indelible mark in me, saying, so if you can have it, get everything, the whole world, and then lose it or lose your soul, it means it's not the paramount thing. It's not the most important thing. It's not the paramount thing. So if it's not the paramount thing, there must be something higher. So I lost taste for anything material since then. So even now, I don't fancy prosperity messages or talking about money. I can't stand it. Even though, I'm blessed, it's not because because of that I don't like prosperity or something. I use it, but I never think it's something we should focus on or we should make a focal point or of people and making people to focus on that. So because you will lose it eventually, even if you don't lose it in this world, when you die you will still lose it. So it's not so, and that is the wisdom Jesus was trying to teach us, that don't focus on material things. But I learned that the hard way. I learned that lesson the hard way. So that is one thing. But also our family, our upbringing also helped me, because in our family nobody was smoking or drinking, or so things like that.
Your grandmother that looked after you in the village, it's like she became like a mother to you. You got so attached to her.
She was the only mother I knew. She was the only mother I knew, because what happened was, I had a very interesting story. I grew up in this family. It's called Adelaja family. In Idomila, they actually call it the Bale family. It's like the local chief, local king, the village king, the village king. So that is the royal family. So the father, the father of the house had died before I came to the world. So my mother was one of the daughters of the king. So she married a man from the big town, the Ijebu town. And but this man that she married happened to be a brute of some sort. He was abusing her, beating her, maybe drinking as well. Something, maybe it was violent, maybe it was not drinking, but somehow violent. But there are two parts to this story. Some people say it's because he was so poor that the royal family was saying it's a disgrace for our daughter to be married to him. But other people say, that's what I was told when I was growing up, that he was abusing my mother. So to cut a long story short, the family of my mother, the royal family, said, no, we will not allow our daughter to be married to this kind of a man, maybe because of his poverty or because he was a brute. So they decided, they had just been wedded for 6 months. They decided to take back their daughter. That's the language. We are going to collect or take back their daughter. So they took their daughter back, my mom, back home, and they were ready to give her in marriage to another man. Then they discovered she was pregnant. And get what that pregnancy was. Who was inside?
That was you.
That was me. Wow. So they had to let her stay back in the family house. So she was 6 months pregnant or 5 months pregnant. And then, so she came back pregnant from this man, but they had divorced. No, they had cut the relationship. So, and they would not allow her to go back to him. And they would not allow him to come and even see her or see the child. So she gave birth. Then she stayed maybe in the family for 2 years, and then she married again. So she married to another state altogether. So she left, and I was left with my grandmother, with her mother. So then there were other kids that were bigger than me. So I grew up with everybody else. So, just a little bit over me, and I was the last. So it was natural for me to think the grandmother was my mother, because there were people just over me, and we were all in the family. And then I was calling her my mother, in our local language. And until I was 12 years old, when somebody came to visit us. Maybe she had been coming before then when I was smaller, but I couldn't recollect. But when I was 12, they said somebody had come to visit us. Then one day I was playing in the bank, and somebody said, "That is your mother." I was so annoyed. She was a younger lady, but I was saying, "No, that is my mother." So I couldn't comprehend it, or to reconcile the fact that this younger lady was my mother. My mother was supposed to be the old woman, And then I went to my grandmother to talk to her about it. And she said, that was anyway when the truth came out, that she was not my mother. But at that time, I didn't have any motherly feeling. I couldn't really have any motherly feeling to any other person. The only person I could have this motherly feeling to was my grandmother. So it's a great loss for parents who give away their children before they are matured enough to love them. So up to now, even though I love my mother, but I'm loving her out of obligation. I love her with Christ's love, but my real love, like with the maternal love, the really, family love, the really blood love I had for my grandmother that I lost when I was 15. Wow. So now I still feel I don't have a mother, or even though I love my mother.
But in 1 minute, you wrote a book about her called Olorunwa, which means there is God. Can you just in 1 minute tell us what you put together in that book?
It's my way of saying thank you to her. I wrote her a letter in that book, and I was addressing others. I've dreamt for her to live to see who I am today. I never knew she would never live to see. I was a hooligan. I was a hooligan when I was growing up with her. I was abusive to her. I was non-obedient. I was disobedient to her. I was violent. I was, rough, and I was totally disobedient. And I was thinking when I grew up, I would recompense and compensate for her. But I lost the opportunity. So this book, Olorunwa, was the name she used to call me. I said, that your Olorunwa has become the dream you had for him.
Well, you know what? I want to just thank you for watching. And this particular program is ended here. But there is a part 2. And there's going to be a part 3. So please make sure you're on the lookout for the second part of it. God bless you as you continue to watch and put into practice what you have heard. Bye for now.